Jim was like, come on, Nick Thierry, suck it up. I'm like, right, okay, Zoe, leave. This is jungle, no TV, no Blackberry.
The Avatar movies might be all CGI, but these actors perform every single stunt, wear elaborate costumes, and work with professional trainers to make sure they can run, jump, fight, and even hold their breath for over 7 minutes. We've got a lot to talk about here.
That's great, Jake. Hold on now, take it easy, don't get ahead of yourself, okay?
Number 1. Director James Cameron always goes for authenticity, even if it's incredibly dangerous to shoot. It wasn't enough for the actors to voice CGI characters that were underwater. They actually had to be able to do it themselves. Kate Winslet managed to hold her breath for 7 minutes and 14 seconds. It was brilliant, and I was very proud of myself, and I'll probably never be able to do it again. That came at the end of 4 weeks worth of quite intense training.
Most challenging for me was to physically play a 14-year-old girl.
Number 2. She really went through the ringer for this film. Being a 72-year-old actor didn't hold her back from doing the same rigorous training as every other actor in this film. She and the rest of her castmates had to unlearn a lot of normal human behaviors while swimming underwater for long periods of time. Sometimes their shoots would have them submerged in water for over 12 hours, learning how to not squint or clamp their mouth shut. Both natural reactions when you're submerged. During take after take in a gigantic water tank, she had to have the professional divers speed her back to the surface for air, just in case she wasn't able to make it up fast enough. Number 3. Imagine being held down underwater with weights around your waist. Not only did the actors have to be trained on holding their breath, but they also had to make sure they stayed submerged. That's where the weights come into play. Sam Worthington really struggled with filming underwater, mostly due to his own fear. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. You're dealing with the restrictions of free diving, the constraints of motion capture underwater, and you're trying to keep an emotional journey going while you're innately struggling with the fear of dying.
It's how do you do emotion underwater without, how do you not look like a blowfish?
Number 4. We know the actors pretty much do it all.
Mocap ready, and action!
Every major stunt that you see on camera was performed by the actors themselves.
They had to run, they had to leap, they had to fight, they had to do all the things that you see them doing in the film.
Considering that the actors were also clad in painful CGI suits and head rigs, they definitely left the shoot every day incredibly sore. Just look at these massive leaps Zoe Saldaña had to do.
One of the things that I'm always going to take with me is the fact that I was a part of a revolutionary experience in Hollywood.
Number 5. Just another part of the brutal physical training the actors had to go through.
When you hold a bow, you have to kind of hold it this way, but the Na'vi hold it that way.
The rigorous hours of training in such an odd way left the actors' hands and arms super cramped and sore afterward.
That was one of the biggest things we had to work with for her, is how to shoot this bow and arrow.
Another dangerous aspect, besides just generally dealing with weapons, was you need to have perfect aim so you don't hit something you're not supposed to. Luckily for Zoe Saldaña,
I have really good aim.
But her downfall after so many hours of practice is,
I can only shoot like a Na'vi. I cannot do archery like a human. Go figure.
Number 6. Yes, they got to ride actual horses on set, but it wasn't easy. They had to do tons of training in order to be able to ride bareback and manage the horses properly. Also, because the headgear they were wearing, they didn't always have a perfect peripheral view. Not great when you're riding a live animal. We also can't forget about Sam Worthington's stunt where he takes a hard fall off his horse.
Say where to go.
Forward.
Ouch, that definitely had to hurt. Number 7. There's a lot of hand-to-hand combat in these movies. This type of martial arts the actors had to learn was called wushu,
which is a very graceful form of martial arts that I grew up to like after I trained.
The actors had to do months of intense training, pushing through all the aches and pains that came with the learning of a new physical skill. Number 8. Anytime an actual weapon is on set always creates an element of danger. Luckily for the cast, they had military trainers to help prepare them to work with their weapon of choice.
They want you to kind of be proficient with weaponry and stuff like that because the guys in the Marine.
Sam Worthington had to be super prepped in his military training, as he had to do all of the movements in the bulky motion capture suit and helmet. Number 9. Let's talk about the way Na'vis move.
We have to go through not just climbing rocks, but also how to climb through the vines,
Ilram Choi had some major stunts to perform,
jump from space to space.
while also staying true to the Na'vi movements.
He might be a hunter or he'll be a soldier.
They had him step in for several characters because he was one of the few to be able to hit all of the dangerous choreography in such a flawless manner.
He was even one of the amp suits that was being developed.
Sam Worthington had his own style of movements he and James Cameron based on his ability to surf.
When I started talking about flying the Banshees and the Leonopteryx like a board sport, like this kind of athletic thing,
He was able to get into it in a way that felt natural to him, while still maintain his Na'vi movement. Which brings us to our next point. Number 10. A lot of prep went into creating the Na'vi's fighting style.
We had to design not just the stunts, but also the movements that would be associated with the Na'vis.
They only had a month and a half to train the actors, so they had a lot to squeeze in. They had to design fight scenes specifically for those movements to shine through. Any choreographed scene that came off too human had to be reworked, which, naturally, required a lot of takes and a lot of patience.
It's a lot more difficult than I would have thought. We had to constantly be on them every day about how they were fighting.
Number 11. Even getting into character is dangerous. Every actor had to go through the life cast process, which they used to design the characters. Basically, they had to wear restrictive plastic all over their face, while another layer of plaster was poured over them. Going through this made it extremely difficult to hear, see, smell, and even breathe. Though a vigorous process, it was highly necessary as those designs get scanned into computer files to get made into what we eventually see on screen. Number 12. Things got really method for a few days.
we knew we were doing that.
James Cameron wanted to prepare his actors for shooting in an entirely CGI world.
Because we knew that ultimately we were going to wind up in a fully CG rainforest with fully CG characters, and it had to look real.
By taking them to the rainforest for reference. Needless to say, it definitely wasn't the most comfortable or safe experience for the crew. I took the actors on what I called a sense memory odyssey. We went to Kauai. We lived in the rainforest for a few days. We cooked in underground fire pits. We drank water from the leaves. He wanted them to bring those experiences back to the set. The way they placed their hands and feet when walking up a steep section, the sounds, the smells, and everything in between that could be utilized for the world of Avatar. Zoe Saldaña said that those were the most physically demanding days of her life.
Just digging and climbing and muddy, and
Especially because she had to wear her actual costume.
we're videotaping and we're going through the inside of this jungle.
We've got intense martial arts training, awkward left-handed archery, fight choreography, talented stunt people, and some major hikes through the rainforest. Who else is excited about the next installment in the Avatar franchise?